All right, ladies and gentlemen, folks, everybody out there, going to do a little another video review for you, I guess, over something I bought a little while ago. Just kind of like a, I don't know, gun of opportunity, shall we say. So, as anyone with eyes to see can see that this is a SMLE No.1 Mark III, a SMLE, an Enfield, whatever you want to call it. It goes by many, many names, some of which are more technically correct than others. I will just refer to this as my my SMLE No.1 Mark III. So, this is a, I believe, 1962. No, sorry, 1949. I thought it was older than that. 1949 Ishapore production, based on the markings here on the what do you call it? The stock band, I guess. See if I can get that in the camera here. So there's a stock band, and you can see right there it says 1949 with the little crown and everything, crest. That indicates that this was an Ishapore produced weapon. So it is a Indian continent produced SMLE No.1 Mark III. Pretty cool. So I came across this in one of my local stores, and it's a store that normally doesn't really have a lot of used guns or surplus stuff, but sitting there on the rack, they had this rifle just sitting there, and for a pretty reasonable price too. I think they only wanted like $500 for it, and at this, this was like in January of this year. So finding something like this for that price in these times, I was like, dude, nice. So I did my usual milsurp tests that I do with every milsurp rifle that I buy. The cartridge test of putting it in the muzzle there, opening up the action, checking for matching numbers, checking the bore, checking the condition of the exterior metal and everything else. And to be honest, this rifle looked a little beat up on the outside here. The wood is quite dry. It was drier when I got it. A lot of dings, compression marks, handling marks, things like that. The rear sight doesn't work properly, in the sense that the little rotator thing here doesn't work anymore. A lot of the bluing here is just completely worn off, gone. Patina, whatever you want to call it. And the stock in particular has a lot of marks, and I'm assuming fixes, especially right there at the top. You can see there was a split that they fixed, and also at the bottom here as well on the toe they fixed that. So this thing has been used, I would say, but probably carried a lot more than shot, because when I looked in the bore of this thing, down the rifling and everything else, and did the cartridge muzzle test here, it's basically flawless. Like, this thing was almost brand new when it came to the interior mechanical condition. So this is definitely a case of something that was carried a lot more than it was shot. And given the production date of this gun being post-World War II, that kind of makes sense, right? There wasn't a whole lot of fighting for this thing to be participating in, especially in India. At least not as much as we saw, obviously, in World War II. So it is interesting, though, that this is a No.1 Mark III that has been produced so late, because I believe for World War II, Britain had switched to the No.4 Mark I pattern, which is ever so slightly different from the No.1 Mark IIIs, and you guys can look up those differences for yourself, but they include a lot of functional cosmetic changes, things like that, especially the front end here, the sight arrangement, little things like that. But yeah, it's interesting that this is a 1949 production, but it's still a No.1 Mark III. But that worked out in my favor, because I actually like the No.1 Mark IIIs more than the No.4 Mark Is. For a lot of reasons. I just think, because the No.1 Mark IIIs were the same pattern that was used in World War I, and I just kind of, I don't know, I just like that pattern better. I think it looks better. It looks more old-timey World War I-ish, The design philosophies fit more with, how Mausers and other bolt-action rifles were at the time. You got your rear sight back here, instead of having an aperture that's like back here that you'll see on some more modern production 1903 Springfields, 1917s, and I believe also the No.4 Mark Is have the rear aperture sights back here, versus having the rear sight more traditionally mounted up here in the front. So they had this rifle sitting there, and I decided to pick it up because it honestly was sitting there for like, I don't know, a couple weeks before I even bought it. And I was like, man, nobody's buying this thing. It seems to be in perfectly fine shape. And to me, honestly, I really don't even care if it matches because, I really wanted a shooter more than anything. I'm not really a collector of Enfields because, one, there is a million of these things all over the place. They're almost as bad as Mausers when it comes to collectability in terms of like what different kinds of things you could collect about just every single kind of Enfield out there. So I'm not really a collector when it comes to Enfields, and personally, I think Mausers are better bolt-action rifles. Anyways, but that's a whole different subject. But yeah, I just really wanted a shooter because I honestly really enjoyed my time shooting at SMLE the first time. And the story behind that is a friend of mine who I served with in the military. He was originally from Britain. And so he came, his family moved over here to the States when he was roughly teenage years or whatever. So he kind of, grew up half in Britain, half here. And, he wasn't really knowledgeable a whole lot about guns or anything, but I said I was going to a gun show this weekend. And this was years ago. And he says, well, can I go with you? I just want to see. And I was like, all right, sure. And wouldn't you believe it, there was a young gentleman there who was selling a No.1 Mark III, very similar to this. Private seller, just selling the rifle, and he had a ammo can of about maybe 300 rounds worth of like a really old crap 303 surplus, still on the original chargers. They're not strippers, they're chargers, according to British doctrine. Still on the charger, still in the little cloth bandoliers and everything, and he was selling the whole thing, rifle, ammo, everything for about $300. And I was sitting there and I was like, ooh, man, there's got to be something wrong with this rifle. But I did all my usual checks, inspected and everything, and it looked completely fine. Used heavily, yes. Shot, yes, absolutely. But nothing that I would call dangerous or shot out or unusable. Definitely shooter grade. Which is perfect for my friend here because he didn't really care about collectability either. He just wanted something cool, something nice. And him being obviously a British person, he was very keen to particular types of weapons. James Bond guns, SMLEs, L85s. Obviously, we can't get those here, but British weapons, FALs, right? L1A1s, stuff like that. So he saw this here, and in front of the guy, and I'm like, "Hey, dude, if you don't buy this, I will." So he's like, "Okay." We do the deal, hand him the cash, and he walks off with his new rifle. And the whole time, though, actually, I got to say too, my friend there was like, "So it's literally as simple as just going to a gun show and handing the guy cash, and that's it." And I'm like, "In Arizona? Yeah, dude, that's all you need. I mean, he's not a felon. You're not a felon, obviously. Both legal to own. Yeah, go for it." So he was very surprised by that. He thought there was a bit more of a process to buying guns in the United States, especially in Arizona. But thankfully, I live in a free state and a mostly free country, so we can do those things. But so he was very, very happy with that. I took apart his whole rifle, maintained and cleaned it for him, got it ready to go to shoot. And then when we went out shooting the next weekend or two, I swear it's like when he picked up and used this rifle, it was like he was born with it. Just immediately, he knew exactly what to do with it. I mean, he was just had perfect posture with the rifle and everything. And he was actually hitting pretty good too, despite having never shot one in his life, never handled one. I swear, it's like in British people's blood to know how to use these things. I don't know what it is, but the guy was a really good shot with it. And he, of course, went straight to the mad minute. He's like, "I want to see if I can do it." So he's sitting there the whole time doing his thing. He's got his hand up here. How they do it the really fast method that the British do. They hold up here on the bolt knob and basically use their middle finger or other finger here as the trigger, and they just boom, 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 go as fast as they can. And he was knocking that thing out. It's just so fast. And like I said, this was without any prior training, knowledge, experience on his end. He just picked it up and did it. So, man, I was just like, that's really cool. His dad is British too, so they were both just super ecstatic, super happy to be able to actually own something, that was made, produced by their country, in their country, originally, and they actually come to the United States of all places you know, and be able to own a piece of military hardware from their home nation and be able to fire it, shoot it, you know, all that good stuff. They were just absolutely smiles all day long. I mean, they were just so happy that they could do that. So that was really cool to you know, experience to see that. But of course, with them firing it, I also got to shoot a little bit myself, and I was really surprised that despite how big and chunky this thing looks, it's actually pretty lightweight, pretty well balanced. I really like the pistol grip stock back here. This is just absolutely perfect. I think, honestly, I think that this style here, this setup is a lot better than Mauser's. Just saying. Though I think some of the Swedish Mausers have that kind of stock arrangement, but on a regular like 98 pattern, they don't have that. So, and of course, the 303 cartridge is not as powerful as 8mm, so it doesn't kick you around as much. It still kicks a little bit, but it's very manageable. It's nice. It has enough oomph to kind of know that you're shooting a full power rifle cartridge, but it's not so much that's going to be punishing if you don't hold it correctly. So just overall, very pleasant to shoot. The triggers on these are also pretty good too, because they are a 2-stage, so they have a bit of take up, and then you reach the wall. Very clean break. So it's quite easy to see how the Brits really did take advantage of like the potential accuracy of these things, because honestly, these have really good triggers. They just do. The actions are also legendarily smooth and fast, and I definitely found that to be the case myself when I took this one out to go shoot. You know, I would jam 10 rounds into this thing, and before I knew it, I was out. You know, even me being a left-handed shooter, you know, I was blazing through this ammo just so fast, because it's really fast to just, you know, it's got the short bolt throw. The action's relatively short and quick to move. Yeah, all of those legendary reports of saying how fast these things are to operate, I would say are absolutely 100% true. Because it is fast, very easy. So props to the British for that, making a very nice and smooth action. So for accuracy potential, the only ammo I could find, especially now, is super hard. Like 303 British was not exactly easy to find before, at least for quality stuff that was worth shooting. But finding like PPU stuff like this is almost impossible now. But I had about 60 rounds worth that I bought also at the store when I bought the rifle. And accuracy potential with just this regular ball stuff, I was getting right around 3 MLA, 3 inches at 100 yards with the irons. You know, really taking my time, which is about as what you could expect out of a, you know, standard military service rifle. I didn't really expect anything better. But that's, you know, 3 MLA is perfectly acceptable for the standards that they made this rifle for. I mean, heck, even way back in World War I, when No.1 Mark IIIs were the standard, 3 MLA is perfectly acceptable, perfectly. I've heard some rumors that No.4 Mark Is and No.4 Mark IIs are a little bit more accurate, just due to the nature of the bedding with the rifle stock and everything else, and the little improvements they made. I don't know. I don't have a No.4 Mark I to test, so maybe someday I will, but for right now, I'm content with this. Also, I need to get more ammo, so... But, yeah, I was quite pleased with it. You know, not the most accurate thing in the world. My Mausers are more accurate than this, by far, easily. I mean, they are the checkmate Persian Mausers, so maybe it's a little bit unfair in terms of quality, because those things absolutely blow this rifle out of the water when it comes to quality, craftsmanship. But that's just my bias towards Mausers versus Enfields, which is one of the eternal debates in the surplus world, right? So yeah, it's pretty accurate. Action was very smooth. It had no reliability issues. This thing worked just fine. You know, overall, I can absolutely see why this was the standard rifle for the British Commonwealth for such a long time, because it's just acceptable in pretty much every way for a standard trooper. It's not too heavy. It's not too big. Even though it looks big, it's really not that big. You know, 10 round capacity, very smooth, quick action, nice trigger. So that way, you know, the good marksman troops in your units actually can take advantage of that. But the average trooper who can't necessarily shoot that well isn't really going to notice the difference either. So it's very much good enough in all regards for a standard trooper. I wouldn't say this thing is necessarily super exceptional at a lot of things like accuracy or quote unquote knockdown power or power in general. You know, it's got a 10 round magazine. The action is very smooth and fast, yeah. But overall, it's just all around a good gun. You know, it's very easy to see why. Like I said, they kept this thing for as long as they did. I mean, I think SMLEs were still being used at the Commonwealth until like the late 60s or early 70s even. So, you know, still great rifle overall. Very happy with it. Now, when it comes to maintenance and taking care of this thing, I still cannot for the life of me understand the just enormous complexity when it comes to the stock setup. I don't like it at all. I particularly don't like this separation here when it comes to this receiver band here, the rear stock, which I've never been able to remove one of these from the receiver band here. It is stuck on there really good with this huge bolt that kind of sits in there like that. I've never been able to remove it by hand. It's kind of annoying because when I destock these old weapons, I like to remove absolutely everything, and I could not do that with this rifle. Also, there's so many pieces in this wood stock that just I won't say it was the easiest thing to take apart in service. I could do it, but it wasn't anywhere near as simple as a Mauser where you take the 2 action screws out and the whole thing just goes, you know. This thing took a little bit of research and a little bit of watching some YouTube tutorials about how to take this thing fully down and also to reassemble it correctly in such a way that it does not affect the accuracy. Because if you watch Bloke on the Range and you remember his videos talking about the bedding setup of a SMLE, it's very important that you get all the little finicky bits just right. Otherwise, you're going to have the wrong tension up here on the barrel. You have the wrong tension all throughout the gun, and it's going to mess up your accuracy something fierce, which I still to this day do not understand why the British did that. Okay, so I know why they did it. I just don't agree with it. So let's just put that disclaimer in there. But yeah, so they weren't kidding though when they said that the barrel on these things is very thin. There's a reason why this thing, despite looking as long and bulky as it is with these big wooden stocks on it, it actually doesn't weigh that much, and it's fairly well balanced. Is because the barrel on this thing is super thin. It is a pencil freaking barrel, and they mean it. You know, versus a Mauser barrel, which you can double as a club and hit somebody with. This thing is not something you'd really want to bash somebody over the head with. You know, that's why they give you a bayonet, right? But yeah, all this stuff and how all of this works together, I'm honestly not a fan of. I wish it was simpler, but it does do the job of protecting the metal underneath. And if you do have everything set up just right, it shoots just fine. So, not like they really expected the average trooper to be taking the stocks off of his rifle every engagement. So, I guess in practical terms, it's not really a big deal. Yeah. So maintenance of it, not my most favorite thing in the world. The bolt on here can be a little finicky at times, getting it on and off the track. You have to position it just right to get the bolt head over the track so it slips on, and then you can cycle the action. I've had some times where I'm just sitting there, I'm like really trying to crank down on it. I'm like, why the hell is this bolt head not getting on the track? And you move it back just a tiny bit, and then it just goes boom, right in, no problem. So, not the easiest thing. It's not like a Mauser bolt, which is just in, out, done, easy. This one you have to be a little careful with. So what else? I mean, yeah, maintenance, shooting, everything, just, you know, it's all around a good gun. I really enjoy shooting it, and you know, it's I don't know, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just all around a good gun. I'm quite happy with the example that I have. You know, even though I know it's not exactly a super duper high collectible thing. You know, I only paid $500 for it, but shoots great. The wood may look a little damaged on the outside and old and dry and everything, but honestly, when I took this thing apart, I don't think this gun has ever been destocked in its entire life. Because I took it apart and just the wood on the inside was absolutely pristine. There was no heavy corrosion or damaging, gouging, or repairs or anything like that. So this was definitely a case, I think, of a rifle, like I said, that was carried a lot and not shot hardly at all. So, but yeah, that is my SMLE No.1 Mark III. Like I said, I really prefer these No.1 Mark IIIs over the No.4 Mark I's. God, I hope I'm getting that naming convention right. It's so, it's weird. Maybe someday I'll get a jungle carbine too, but at the moment, I'm just happy with, you know, a very basic example of a British Commonwealth standard infantryman's rifle. So yeah, I hope I can get more ammo for this thing and keep shooting it, because I really do enjoy shooting it. You know, it's nice mild recoil, it's accurate enough, it's very, very fun to go fast with that bolt, you know, because Mauser certainly can't do that, I'll tell you right now. But I will say though, charging this with the chargers, not strippers, but chargers, you have to shove that thing all the way in there, you know, and do your thing, but you can't close the bolt, you know, with the charger in the way. You got to take the charger out, and then you can close the bolt. Unlike Mausers, where you just stick the clip in there, unload the rounds, and then you just shove the bolt forward, and the clip just flies right out, which I think is super, super cool and super dandy. I wish more rifles did that. This one, obviously, you can't do that. Also, there's potential for rim lock, because 303 British is a rimmed cartridge, so that comes with all the disadvantages of that. And if you've ever operated a rimmed cartridge weapon, you know exactly what that feels like, and I have done that with this gun. I have gotten rim lock on this thing where I did not load the charger clip, there we go, correctly, and it just gets all kinds of stuck in there, and just fighting with it and getting the rounds out and taking the mag out and all that stuff, and just blah. But other than that, perfectly reasonable, well thought out, all around, just good, solid gun. So, you know, one of the quintessential British pieces ever. And yeah, I really do enjoy though that, you know, two British people I know just immediately picked it up like they were born with it. You know, just awesome experience. Anyway, so that's pretty much all I got to say about this particular rifle here. Might get some shooting of it later, but right now with ammo as it is, I might have to wait a little while. So yeah, if you see a decent condition SMLE out there, I mean, shoot, I'd say pick it up. You know, decent prices and all that stuff. You know, it's just a good gun. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that, and we'll see you next time.